All right, and we are live tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for Stories from the Path, episode number 8. And thanks to all of you for getting out and sharing your time with myself and with Andy. And particularly thanks to Andy for joining and being our guest tonight. I met Andy about 2.5 years ago, and I'm not sure if it's a coincidence, but they've been 2.5 of the best damn years of my entire life, I must say. We'll give Andy a more fitting introduction in a few minutes, but before we do, I want to cover a few things about the format for tonight's call and some details. Tonight's broadcast is a 60-minute interview and conversation. And during that time, it'll mostly be Andy and I talking, and he's going to be sharing a number of pieces of his own story. Along the way, you may have a few things you'd love to ask or comment about. And don't worry, you'll definitely get your chance. If you happen to be on Zoom video tonight, you can type questions and comments into the chat box directly to me, and I'll work them into the conversation where I can. We'll also have a brief question and answer period after the call where you can either ask a direct question of Andy or make a comment about the experience or anything in particular that inspired you. We have a hard ending time of 8:15 on this call, so we respect everybody's time and we want you to be able to join in and stay for the whole call without thinking about whether or not it's going to run on and on and on and on. Usually we wrap up about 8 or 8:10 at the latest, so I really encourage you to stick around for the whole story. So how did this whole thing get started? Well, it got started the way a lot of things do. It got started with a series of small steps along the path and then eventually a leap of faith. And so what happened for me is when I was at Train the Trainer in San Antonio in January of last year, I sort of coincidentally wound up being the person picked to sit on stage and interview Mike Dooley during the Returning Trainers breakout session. And I really enjoyed myself. I thought this is really cool interviewing people. So when I came back from that, I had the courage to launch some circles, and I started doing some men's circles with a few of the people that are in this call tonight. I'm really grateful for you for helping me get that going. And then I got some more confidence, and I started doing some original content webinar, and I did more and more interviewing during those webinars, and I realized I really liked interviewing people. So this all led me to the point where I realized that it was pretty ironic that just at the beginning of 2016, I said to my wife, Christiana, I don't think the internet works for connecting with people. It's just a medium where you can't get one-on-one connection. And boy, did I eat those words about 30 webinars later. So what I've come to realize that it's not the distance between us to create separation. It's our limiting beliefs and the walls that they build to create the separation. And thanks to many of you who've been a part of my life over the last 1.5 years, I've learned how to tear some of those walls down. And in the process of running a lot of these forums, I've learned many, many things. And probably the most significant awakening I've had has been this. When we take time to listen to the stories of other people, we come to one really important realization. And that realization is we're all the same. We are one. We all have the same things going on in our life, even if the plot lines are different. We all have desires, which calls us to adventure. We all go on journeys. We all seek aid. We find mentors on the path that help us out. We face challenges and temptations while we're on that path. Eventually we hit the wall, we find the abyss in the story, and then we arrive at some sort of awakening, which is a resurrection, a death and rebirth phase. So we find some contentment in our lives until a new desire sparks and we return to the call. And if that sounds familiar to you, it's because it's from A Hero, 1,000 Faces, Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey. We are all the heroes of our own individual life journeys. So the path we're embarking on tonight reminds me of something my grandpa used to say. My grandpa used to say, the magic happens when preparation meets opportunity. I was prepping for something 2 years ago. I didn't know what it was. Eventually, I saw an opportunity. Tonight's journey is the culmination of that preparation meeting an opportunity. So now I'd like to officially welcome you to Stories from the Path, episode 8, and invite in my very special friend and guest tonight, Andy Dooley. A little round of applause and silence for Andy Dooley. So Andy is a speaker, teacher, coach, and a pioneer in the field of spiritual comedy. Andy's a law of attraction expert and the creator of vibration activation, which is his signature brand. And he's taught this to thousands of people from Australia to Amsterdam and New Zealand and New Jersey, some of whom he actually claims were awake while he was speaking to them. Over the past 10 years, Andy's developed a really unique approach to speaking, teaching, and coaching. And he combines comedy, metaphysics, and science with storytelling to create real-life results for his clients and the members of his inner circle, which he calls his Vibe Tribe. Andy's the author of 2 books entitled I Manifest and the 13 Biggest Manifesting Mistakes and How to Fix Them. He's done numerous video and audio programs, which you can find at his website, andydooley.com. And I could say a lot more about this awesome dude, but I think it would be a lot more fun if we just started talking. So welcome to the show, Andy. I'm going to unmute you and let you join the conversation. Hey, Andy, hello.
Thank you, Jim, for that amazing, amazing intro and sharing a little bit of your story and how you got here doing what you do. I think it's perfect. Definitely one of your strengths is interviewing and connecting people.
Well, thank you for that. I'm so appreciative for you sharing that. So you just got back from a really killer weekend in the Pacific Northwest. Tell us a little bit about what you did out there this weekend.
Wow. So I did my vibration activation workshop in Seattle and Portland, and I had quite the episode in Portland. I don't know if I told you, but I want to share it.
Please do.
So in Portland in the morning, I get into the room usually 2 hours before the workshop. So the workshop starts at 10. I was in the meeting room by 8, setting things up. And I had some awesome assistants, Regina and Joe and Andy and who else was there? Lisa. And I said, I need you guys there at 8:45. So 8:45 in the morning rolls around and they're not there. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. That's okay. I kind of plan for that because sometimes, traffic, parking, whatever. 9 o'clock rolls around and I'm like, they're not here. That's interesting. And then I start getting on my phone and then it's 9:10 and I'm checking Facebook now. And they're like, where are you, Andy? We're here. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Wow.
Where are you? You're there. I'm here. Like, you must be in the wrong meeting room. So I'm looking around and then fast forward, the pieces start coming together and I realize, OMG, the wrong hotel. Oh, wow. Everybody's gone to the wrong hotel. So I have 40 people showing up at the wrong hotel and I'm at the other hotel across town and I'm like, starting to go, a couple of 4-letter words are flying out and Julie was there and I'm freaking out and I think, okay, pack everything up and go over to the other hotel. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have a meeting room at the other hotel. It has to be at this hotel. I said, well, go over there and apologize and say I'm sorry. And I was like, wait a minute, why don't we tell everybody who's over there to just come over here? I'm like, is that going to work? Are they going to be too pissed off and be like, screw you? But my assistants were over there and they told everybody, listen, we got the wrong hotel address that was on the website and the emails that went out. And so let's just go over to the Crowne Plaza. And so everybody came over and they were really good about it, really nice about it. And it totally worked out. So I had a great day in Portland, but it was terrifying to start.
That's such a cool way to start the whole experience. Now, you told me that when you were in Portland and in Seattle for that matter, you had some moments this weekend that were unique even for you in terms of the things that you said. Like there was just stuff coming out of you like it was an out-of-body experience at times.
Yeah. Seattle, when I do a Saturday, Sunday workshop, and I recommend this for everybody, if you can do 2 workshops back to back, your second workshop is just going to be light years better than the first one. Because, you've gone through the material the day before, and now you're just like, when you show up the next day to do it, like you're just totally activated. Every cell in your body is just on board with sharing this information and getting people involved and having them get up and laugh and fun. And so like there were times in Portland where I was just, things were coming out of my mouth. I'd never said the way I was saying them and stories or metaphors. And it was just like, what is this? It was like so much fun and so just like pure ecstasy, bliss just pouring through me. It was amazing.
Absolutely. So I want to get this one question out of the way right away because I know it's burning in everybody's brains. How many hats do you own and which one is your favorite?
I have no idea how many hats. I really do love my fuzzy hat. I love that
fuzzy hat. Yeah.
But it's just so out there.
I think that's everybody's favorite. I got to tell you, of all the people that I see around you whenever I join forces with you, that's the one that gets the most attention. We went out to a comedy club once in Chicago, and I think you wore that blue fuzzy hat that night out on the Chicago town. That was good times. Yeah. So you were the youngest you are the youngest of 3 siblings, with Mike being the oldest, Amanda being the middle, and then you being the youngest. Were you a typical youngest child who could get away with everything?
I did seem to get away with a bit. But yeah, I was just such a wild child, just running around and just go, go, go. I think all of us were.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, there was a time where I kind of like it clicked, and I was like, God, I can kind of get away with some stuff here. But then Mike called me out on it pretty quickly.
I'm not surprised. And you grew up in Florida in the St. Petersburg area, correct?
Correct.
And your whole youth was spent down there then. So tell us some of the things you were interested in when you were like a young child, like when you were like 8 to 12, 13. What kind of stuff did Andy Dooley do as a developing kid?
I love the woods. We lived across the street from mangroves, and I would always go out into the woods, and I had tree forts and trails, and I put on my dad's old big army jacket and just go out into the woods. And I rode my bike. I was very much into my like dirt bike and building jumps and jumping them and seeing how far I could jump my bike. I was always into, the kids in the neighborhood, we played football, then we played baseball, then we played basketball, then we go swimming in the canal and literally catch snakes with our bare hands. Jump out of trees into water, jump off bridges. That was a little later, but yeah, it was pretty just like explore nature, get out. I go to houses that weren't built yet, and I go to the pile of lumber out front, and I just start making shit.
So even when you were younger, then you were really into creating stuff. You like to like find stuff and make something out of it. You were more artistic than you were like book study sort of person.
For sure.
For sure. So then that led you to going to the world famous Ringling School of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida. Yes.
Yeah, that was an epic choice. It seems so crazy because in high school it seemed like, well, I'll go to University of Florida like Mike did.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what he did. And well, I don't know anything else really. But my SAT scores were crap. And my art teacher was like, no, you should go to art school. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Go to art school? Draw? Like you can do that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you did do a program there. You did like it was, I think you said it was a 3-year degree program there at the Ringling School of Arts.
Yeah, it was a 3-year degree. And then the 4th year, you're supposed to go get your academics and get your degree.
Right.
But I never did that. I just got right out into the world and started designing, creating, working, and just got one job after another. And no one ever asked.
What kind of job? Well, tell me about a couple of those jobs out of college. What did your life look like right then? What were some of your explorations at that point?
I got a job working for a company in Florida called Porpoise Pool and Patio. And what
did you do for the Porpoise Company?
I did layout and design for their catalog, and they sold pool supplies and rubber rafts and anything to do with the pool.
Yeah. So eventually at some point, all of your paths, you, your brother, your mom, led you together, and you founded the first foundation of the company you founded together called Tut as the t-shirt company. Tell us a little bit about how that came together from your own perspective.
In art school, a friend of mine was designing t-shirts for this company, and after the summer break, I came back and he said, you should check them out. They'll buy they'll buy a design from you. If you design something that they like, they'll print it and they'll give you a quarter for every shirt they sell. And I was like, cool. So I met with the 2 owners, and they said, this is the style and the look we're looking for. This is, at the time, the primitive look was coming in. It was like 1988.
Okay.
They said, if you can do some primitive designs, we'll buy them from you. And so a week later, I came back with some primitive looking designs, and they bought like 3 of them. And then one of them became really, really popular. And I started getting royalty checks every month for a couple $100. And I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Then I graduated art school, moved to Orlando, was in the film production business. Mike quit his job at Price Waterhouse, came down to Orlando and slept on my floor and wanted to start a franchise, McDonald's, a bookstore, like just wanted to do something entrepreneurial. And so he asked me what I'm doing. I'm like, well, I'm freelancing in the film industry as a grunt, as a PA, and I get these royalty checks from this t-shirt company. And he was like, what? And then he said, well, maybe we should start a t-shirt company. I'm like, cool. Let's do that.
And thus Tut was born.
And Tut was born.
So it was all magic, right? It was all really easy. You guys never fought. It was all peace and love and joy. The Dooley brothers and their mom.
Oh, it was tough. It was tough. We tried to get as much peace and love in there as we could, but there was an age difference. I was definitely very immature, and Mike and I would just argue about the designs and the price of the t-shirts and how should we do the trade show booth and how, the catalog should look, and, his role and my role and then my mom's role. And so, yeah, there are a lot of times where we were arguing and fighting, and nothing bad, but just like, oh God, Mike. And you'd be like, Andy, and like, come on, you come on. No, you come on.
So this went on for like a while, though. We know parts of the story if you've been to a conference. Like this was 10 years or so, right? I mean, this was a good chunk of your life, yeah? So like what was the high moment? Like in that whole experience, when was that like, oh my God, this is so cool. We're entrepreneurs. Like for you, what was that? What was the peak during the Tut t-shirt years for you?
One of the main peaks was once we got momentum going and we had the stores open. So we had 2 retail stores right downtown in a very touristy part. And, we had managers and a sales team. And like, it was pure bliss and ecstasy for me on a weeknight, even the weekends, to go into the stores like on Friday night, Saturday night, and be in the stores with, one of my sales associates and just sell. Just meet people, start a buying frenzy. If we could hit $1,000 in one night, that was just like crushing it. And like, so we'd be like, let's do it. We're going to do $1,000 tonight. Let's do it. And we'd just be pulling out t-shirts, and people would see the activity in the store and hear the music, and they would come in and then I'd run across the street to the other store. And it was like, we were like Starbucks. And, I'd rush up to the other store and sell and get them pumped up, and then come back to the other store and sell and get pumped up. And it was like, oh my God, this is my life. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm driving a BMW. I am so cool.
And I bet you were. So this is all happening in the streets of Orlando then. So this is like good tourist activity. This is all happening in your hometown in Orlando then, yes?
Yeah.
Now. So obviously we know some of us that have heard more of the story from both you and from Mike kind of know that at some point things kind of wound down. When did things wind down? When did this whole Tut t-shirt thing start to wrap up? What years are we looking at there?
Yeah, we're looking at 1997, 98. We could see a steady decline in our retail stores because Universal City had now opened up City Walk, and now downtown Disney had opened up. So they were keeping all the tourists on property in the evening, because before that, all the tourists would go to downtown Orlando.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was very smart on their part to keep the money and the tourist on their property at night.
And very painful for your entrepreneurs then, though.
Yes. So the numbers started getting less and less and less. We could kind of see it, and we tried different things. We were going to open up another store, in a very popular, down kind of international drive. But it was just like, oh God, another store, more inventory, and by that time all of us were kind of itching to do other things. Mike really wanted to become a writer. My mom wanted to write more books. I wanted to just go start another company or go be a DJ or go design type fonts or move to New York City. I wasn't sure what I was doing.
So in the years immediately following the Tut t-shirt business winding down, you had some rough rides there through those years. Yes, that was not always the best of times for you.
No, I definitely hit rock bottom.
Yeah. So that was in your hero's journey. That was your abyss right there. That was the abyss for Andy, is those post-out years. There's a rumor going around that you were actually a superhero in your life before you became a speaker and a coach. Tell us a little bit about your superhero days.
Right. So I was doing improv comedy. That was like improv comedy and Toastmasters was really like my social life and, a creative expression outlet. And so I had become an actor, and I had an agent, a very good agent, and she sent me out on a lot of auditions. I didn't book most of them, but I did book a few that were pretty okay. And, I blew through my money. I started another company and blew through my money because of that. So now I'm like, basically really a starving artist, a starving actor. And she said, I need you to fill in for, I can't remember the guy's name. You got to wear the superhero costume, fire ant. It's a fire ant costume. You're Captain Top Choice, and you got to go to a baseball game and run around. And I'm like, she's like, it's $400, but you got 30% of it. I'm like, I'll take it. But I was so humiliated, like this is my life. I'm 39 years old and I'm running around in a costume at a baseball game. Like I wanted to die.
A sweaty costume in somebody else's sweat, right?
Yes. Yeah, the guy who wore it was definitely, into fast food and soft drinks. So it had this like really unique smell, and it was his smell because he had sweated into it. Now I put it on. Now I was I smelled like a McDonald's Big Mac and sodas, and it was awful. I was really humiliated. I was really like, this cannot be my life. I'm 39 years old, and I just had a class reunion, I think, and I had seen some of my friends, they had wives and kids and houses and boats and vacations. And I'm like, where did I go wrong? What happened?
But I mean, along the way here, you're kind of scratching yourself out of it. I mean, you mentioned Toastmasters. I know that you relied heavily on Toastmasters like your brother did. As a matter of fact, I think you actually got your CC and did a lot of work with Toastmasters, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I belonged to 2 clubs. I went every week for 4 years. I mean, that was like that was my social life and my education. That was like my 4-year master's degree.
Right on. So at some point, you decided to try your hand at your own self-help workshop. And I think you said the first one was called Visualization for Fun and Profit. Tell us a little bit about that workshop, your first ever Andy Dooley. I'm sharing my wisdom with the world, and I'm going to be the self-help teacher.
Yeah. So I had done some visualization speeches in Toastmasters, and then I just kind of added on to that. And then The Secret had come out. And now I put together like a little, like it was right before The Secret came out. So like I didn't know it, but I was preparing for what was about to come. And so like preparedness and opportunity were about to come together. And so I had been doing this workshop and I call up a spiritual bookshop in Tampa or Orlando and say, hey, I got this little 2-hour workshop. I can do it. It's a love offering or donation, and it's all about visualization, and the bookshops would say okay. And so I had this little 2-hour workshop, visualization for fun and profit, and it worked. I did it around, and then eventually when The Secret broke, I was able to kind of ride Mike's coattails because Mike had a lot of speaking opportunities. And he's like, I can't do it, but my brother has a workshop on visualization and he can do it. So I got in some doors.
Right on.
Doors open.
So in terms of continuing your work with Toastmasters, that led you to what you said was your second workshop. And based on some successes you were having in Toastmasters, you actually had club members reach out to you and say, can you talk to us and teach us a little bit about speaking? You created the Ultimate Speakers Workshop, correct?
Yeah, that was a blast. It was scary. It was really like, can I do this? Can I pull this off? I mean, I can really relate to Ippy's getting certified and then going home and being like, am I going to do this? And but I didn't have any training. I didn't have any manuals. I was just like, well, in a way, I was desperate for money and to get going. So I was like, I got no other choice. And if people are asking me to do a workshop and willing to pay me, I had to say yes. And so, Mike helped me write the rough draft of the email I was going to send out to the people who asked. And I was just charging them $65 for 6 weeks. We'd meet every Tuesday night in this there was SAC Theater. And then behind it, they had a little room. And it literally there was a giant hole in the wall. The bathroom was disgusting. No one would go to the bathroom for the whole 1 hour. It was disgusting. But people loved the workshop. And it got me facilitating and, explaining and teaching and getting them to feel it. And it was the beginning of what I do now. It was very, very humble, terrified beginnings.
So you were incorporating a little bit of your speaking experience, some of your drama skills, some storytelling, a little bit of comedy, and putting it all together and helping other Toastmasters advance their craft.
Yeah, and a lot of them did really, really well. Once they learned the tools and techniques that I was teaching them, like they started winning contests, and they would all of a sudden just like everyone in their club was like, "Oh my God, you're amazing! What happened?"
Yeah, super cool stuff. So the next thing, or one of the next things for you, was to start getting involved in what you call fringe festivals, fringe shows, right? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. I think you said you had 3 different shows that you developed over time.
Yeah. It was another big step, a big leap of faith of like, am I going to put on a one-man show? Most of my fellow improvisers and actors, I mean, they were all kind of getting together and putting on a show together. And not many had the courage or the crazy enough to put together a one-man show. But I was like, well, I don't want to do it. I want to do my own thing. And so I sent in my, application, and I had like 4 weeks to figure it out. And then it came down to the last 2 weeks, and it was just crazy crunch time to put a show up on its feet, a 1 hour show, and charge people like $8 a ticket. And it was tough because that was the first year they split the Fringe, so it wasn't all central location. Part of it was downtown, and part of it was at the Shakespeare Festival. So you had to drive, and I had the SAC Theater, which was my home, but it's a 200-seat theater. So like I would run out on stage to do my one-man show, and there'd be 6 people in a 200-seat theater.
Right. That's got to feel great.
Like, hey, okay, you 6 people. Here's my show.
Nice. So the funny thing is a lot of us who know you, and pretty much everybody here listening knows you in some degree. We think of you as this like amazingly funny dude, like this talented spiritual comedian, always gets the crowd laughing, funny gets the money sort of guy. But you told me that you didn't take naturally to comedy. In fact, you said you were befuddled by, housewives and other Toastmasters who actually were crushing it with humor, and you had no idea.
I truly did not. I would go to the Toastmasters humor speech contest as a spectator in the very beginning and just be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how is this housewife, and how is this, fuddy-duddy kind of everyday person who works at, Xerox company just killing it?
Right.
And telling these funny stories and cracking these jokes. Like, how do they know how to do that? Like, what?
So you went to a comedy class then. You eventually said, okay, I suck at this, but I'm going to try something. And tell us about your first comedy training.
Yeah, I went to SAC Comedy Lab by accident. A friend of a friend said, we're going. And I was like, what? That's crazy. Like, improv? No. What? So I was like, all right, I'll go, better be good. And so I go, and I was just like floored. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Like, it was just something I'd never seen before. These improvisers getting suggestions, making it up, cracking jokes, just playing off the audience. And then they're like, we teach classes. And I was like, you teach this? Yeah. Yeah, and I sucked. I sucked at improv in the beginning. Like, I got held back. Like, I didn't pass the final audition. I had to go through all the classes again.
So what's your learning curve here? Are we talking like a year and a half till you actually made some inroads, or?
Yeah, it was probably a year. I mean, I had to go through the course. I think I did it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And then the final one, you know, I remember James Newport. He was like, he left a message on my answering machine going, we're going to let you in, but it's going to be a little while before you actually get on stage, but you'll at least be workshopping with the, you know, the next generation. And I was like, okay. And then like, but James never told Jay, and Jay didn't know, and Jay just kind of threw me out there.
Right.
And then Jay was like, okay, you need more classes.
Right.
So I had to take more classes. I just wasn't going to give up. I was just like, I need this. I so need this.
Right.
The spontaneity, the loosening up, because I really started to get serious about everything, myself, life, the t-shirt business. And so, yeah, it was a journey.
And eventually you took it back to Toastmasters, and you didn't sit in the crowd and watch the speaking contest in 2005, did you?
No, yeah, I took it back to Toastmasters, and it all came together. I'm like, oh, I get it. I can tell a story. I can make a point. I can be funny. I can do a character. I understand like the structure now. And so, yeah, in 2005, I had a speech. I entered the humorous speech contest, and I won. It's like, whoa. And then I went to the area, and I won, and I reworked it, and I got to division. And this other guy, he crushed it, but the judges liked me, and so I moved on to district. And I competed at district, which is the whole state of Florida and the Bahamas. And there were a couple other speakers who I thought were way funnier than I was. But one guy didn't use the microphone, which really worked to his disadvantage. Mm-hmm. And then the other girl she was really funny, but she just had like a bad attitude. Mm. And then there was me, you know, being all wacky with my ski outfit, telling my Tony Robbins story, and I won.
Right on. So that's a nice message to just stick to it for all of us. So no matter how much you suck at what you're doing, and I've been working on comedy for 2 years, and I pretty much suck still, but we're getting there. So now you're my inspiration. So at some point, as your comedy career is developing, you begin to realize that you're doing a pretty nice job of poking fun at yourself and the rest of the self-help industry. So at some point, you have that aha moment that you're actually a spiritual comedian. Tell us about your experience at the Unity Church in North Carolina.
Yeah. So now, 2005, I win. 2006, The Secret comes out. And so now Mike is skyrocketing. But Mike is kind enough to send out an email to his list, like a PS on the Notes from the Universe. Hey, if you need web design, you need a t-shirt design, you need a business card, you need a logo, click here. My brother does some cool stuff, because that was one of the things I was doing to make money as well.
Right.
And someone saw it and saw what I was doing, and Susan Foster in North Carolina, she ran like a Unity group, and she said, hey, I see what you do, and I like your stuff, and why don't you come up here to North Carolina and give a talk, and on Friday night, and then Saturday you could do a workshop. And again, it was opportunity and preparedness. It was like I just now had recorded my audio program, and I had like a workshop that I could get up on its feet. And I had the ultimate speaker workshop. So it was like I wasn't really ready, but I had it. And so I said yes. And then so she kept saying, hey, maybe you could ask Mike, maybe he could send out an email to say that you're speaking Friday night at the Unity Church. And I was like, I don't know. I'll see. So I'm working on the material. Mike's excited for me. And I said, maybe you do an email. And he finally sent out an email just to North Carolina saying, hey, my brother's going to be at the Unity Church. And so I fly to North Carolina, and she picks me up from the airport, and we go there that night. So now I have my one-man show, which is spiritual comedy. So my final fringe show is called Self-Development for Dummies. Yeah. But that had like a spiritual message, and it was that's where the whole spiritual comedian was born. And so I'm backstage in the green room, and literally this was like, you hear a green room, but like this was literally a green room, a green couch, green carpet, green walls. I was like, wow, they really made this the green room. And I'm reviewing my notes and my story and everything. And I'm like, excited. And, I'm thinking there's going to be 10 people out there. And I walk out and take a peek, and there's like it's a huge church, and like it's half full. And I'm like, oh my God, there's like over 100 people here. And Susan, she's all excited. Oh my God, we got a great turnout. It's working, And so she introduced me, and I went out there and I rocked it because because it was basically my one-man show. Mm-hmm. So I knew it head to toe. I internalized it. I became the story, and I went out there and I rocked it. And then people signed up for my workshop, and then I sold like one audio program because I didn't know anything about selling. I just thought you had an audio program and everyone would run to go buy it, but no one ran to go buy it. But I did the workshop. I got through it. It was stressful too because I was still at a time where I was still kind of getting my groove. I was still really financially broke, and I was just like, oh, is this going to work? And it was tough.
So, but you stayed with it. You continued to reach out to other Unity churches. You set up this suggestion that, you sell tickets, give them a percentage. And I think you said that was sort of just the start of like Ticket Leap and brown paper tickets. So you had the opportunity to actually monitor the ticket sales. They didn't have to do anything. You could pitch them, come in, do the workshop Saturday, the comedy Friday, and it worked for a while. Yes.
Oh, it was amazing. The timing of, again, like the preparedness and opportunity, like, because I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I came back from that. I was like, hey, Mike, like this worked. I got a thing, I'd like to go around to all the Unity churches and do this. I'll put together the website and the little PDF flyer. I did everything. And Mike would just send out an email to Florida saying, hey, here are all the dates where Andy's going to be at Unity churches. Check them out. Spiritual comedy, 25 in advance, 30 at the door.
Right.
And then the Unity church would announce it. And it was like, and I would do the ticket sales all online and give Unity a percentage. And they were thrilled because it was Friday night at Unity church, and there's nothing going on Friday night at a Unity church.
Absolutely. So eventually you took it to hotels also. Then you started renting some conference space, doing the show on Friday night, Saturday. And then at some point, Big Brother Mike came in and gave you a piece of advice to put them together. Yes?
Yeah, that was scary. Because I was like, oh, this is working and this is exactly how it has to be. And it's like, Andy, do Saturday and Sunday, 2 different cities and just combine it all. I'm like, no one's going to come. It won't work. Like, do it. I'm like, no. And then I did it and then it worked.
So that's when Vibration Activation 1.0 was born, right?
Yeah, 1.0. It still was, that was still a little ways, but that was like the first, that was the beginning.
Combining your comedy with your own message, your teachings, one-day workshop, send them home, wow their lives and change it. That was really the first version of Andy Dooley being a spiritual teacher with a one-day content of his own.
Yeah, that was it. That's how it started.
And it all happened because you just kept preparing and taking the baby steps, just like we're taught to do. So in your career as a speaker, you have a chance to travel a lot. You've also done a lot of these wow tours that taught hosts. If you had to pick one place in your life that's wowed you the most, what place is it?
It was Africa. It was definitely Africa.
Tell us why.
It was the primalness of it, and seeing just like Mother Earth and these animals, and like this is what the planet used to be like. Mm-hmm. And it just felt like I went back in time, and I was like a fly on the wall, but I was, a human being in this van and this Jeep going around on safari, taking pictures of these animals. And it was just like, wow. And the beauty of it, and also the brutality of just, animals hunting and being hunted, and, Africa. I mean, this was Africa, and the Africans are so happy and nice and friendly, and it just blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. And we're going back this year in the fall, so I cannot wait.
Right on. So that's the WOW tour for this fall with Tut. Africa, awesome stuff. Lots of opportunities for people. Check out tut.com if you haven't. So I've heard you talk about Abraham Hooks a lot in our conversations. I know you follow Abraham. I also know we have our mutual friend, Tracy, who channels Frank. And she's about to release a book with your brother, Mike. When did you first get introduced to the concept of like channeling, or the idea of like source energy coming through humans and communicating?
Yeah. So me and my mom had a friend, Angela, who lived in New Hampshire, or I think it was New Hampshire. And I was like in the 6th grade, and she mentioned to my mother one night at the dinner table, you should read the Seth books. And they're really great. And my mom was an avid reader, and like, I'll read anything. And, the cover, unfortunately, the cover was Jane Roberts. It was like the worst picture. Everyone always references is like, that's the worst picture of Jane Roberts you could ever put. She's sitting in a rocking chair, black and white, her head's leaned back, and she's like, it's like, let's put that on the cover of a book, because everyone's going to want that picture.
Right.
I mean, she looked like possessed. But anyway, Mom started reading the book, and she was blown away with it. She brings it home and shows it to Mike, and Mike's like, what? This book is unbelievable. This is answering everything. And so they were explaining it to me, but it was way too deep for me. But that was when I first heard of Seth and channeling, and that you create your own reality.
Right.
That was the beginning.
So your mom's into this. Mike's eating it up because he's got this ferocious appetite for information about time and space realities and stuff like this. But it's a little too deep for you at that point in your process. You told me you kind of weren't the best reader. You weren't the best student. So like, it was eventually you kind of found your own stuff, though. You said you could process things like Jonathan Livingston Seagull and illusions, and then that kind of led you into that further. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Those books that were the Silva Mind Control Method. Books like that, creative visualization, those were like, okay, I get this, but I'd have to read it. Like, I was a terrible reader. I was just weak, but I've definitely developed my reading and writing skills since then. But I could get those, and I could get visualize, and reading the Florence Scovel Shin books with affirmations. It was like, affirmations? I mean, if I say this thing over and over and over, something will happen. And I started saying affirmations, and things started happening, and I was like, this shit works.
Tell us about that book in particular. You told me that The Game of Life and How You Play It by Florence Scovel, and like from the 20s, right? Like you said, that book sort of rocked your world. Tell us about that book.
Yeah. Florence Scovel Shin, The Game of Life and How to Play It. She was basically a life coach way ahead of her time. And people would come to her with, a problem, and she would give them an affirmation and say, come back a week later and tell me how it went. And they would come back and they'd say, you're not going to believe it. This happened and that happened. And so they're telling these stories, and she references the Bible a lot. So they were kind of, biblical kind of affirmations, the walls of delay now crumble away, referencing the walls of Jericho and the trumpets and them falling. But I was okay with that. I was like, well, that makes sense. The walls of lack and delay now crumble away. I now enter into my promised land under grace and perfect ways. Like we wrote that down in the t-shirts, and even, I was saying that, and even in high school and college, and like money would show up. I would get a odd job to mow somebody's lawn, or someone would knock on my door and say, I'm going to be out of town this weekend. Can you feed my cat? And I'm like, oh my God, they could ask anybody, any of the kids in the neighborhood. They asked me. So I was like, this works. It works.
So as a teenager, then you started to believe the power of your own thoughts. You believed in the affirmations. You're getting all this information from the books your mom's bringing home, from your own personal discoveries. Like many of us, you wanted to be a cool kid, right? I mean, you wanted to be Andy Dooley. I'm the cool kid. Right. You told me about a little story about a visualization you had about being the cool kid and going to a party. Share that story with us. This is an awesome story. Maybe one of my favorites I've ever heard from you.
Okay. So in high school, I was reading creative visualization and doing affirmations. And, I wanted to be the cool, I wanted to be invited to the parties and be cool and fit in. And so I remember visualizing walking into just a party, like some party that I wasn't invited to. And like everybody kind of stops and like, they're like, Dooley's here, because everyone called me Dooley. in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start chanting my name, Dooley, Dooley, Dooley. So it's just a wild fantasy. You know, I had no, expectation. So now I've got some momentum going. I have become kind of popular. I'm going to different parties here and there. And one night, totally unexpected, I walk into this party and someone said, Dooley. And someone else says, Dooley. And like, hey, Dooley's here. Then all of a sudden it just started, Dooley, Dooley, Dooley. And like the whole party is chanting my name. And I'm like, oh my God, this shit works.
This shit works. Holy crap. I love that story. I just loved it when you first told me that story. So you told me that religion's not a big part of your life. It really hasn't ever been. And we know that from hearing you speak before. But you consider yourself a very spiritual person. Tell us about like what your connection is to some of the spiritual teachers that we may know about, Jesus, Lao Tzu, the Buddha, whatever. Do you have any particular affiliation or connection to any of like sort of the ascended masters, teachers, if you will?
They're all that I revere all of them. They all have great wisdom, and but there's not one that I'm like, crazy about. I do, love Abraham Hicks. They just keep cranking it out. Esther, God bless her soul, for just showing up and just turning it out and saying things in ways that haven't been said before. And so I revere all these ascended masters that have gone before us, and the time that they spoke and the language that they used. Mm-hmm. It's amazing, what this time and place and existence is for all of us.
So what does your daily practice look like? Do you have like a daily meditation, yoga, spirituality practice? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. RPM, rise, pee, and meditate.
There's a restaurant in Chicago named RPM. We should go there next time you come. You shouldn't do those 3 things there though.
So yeah, every morning, Michelle and I wake up and we'll meditate together, unless it's a morning where she has to get up super early. Mm-hmm. But she'll just meditate on her own. Meditate. And then after I meditate, I get my hot lemon ginger tea. It's just like a staple of mine. And then, I'll read, or I'll look through my vision book and just get connected and centered and start planning out the day and the week. Mm-hmm. And then I'll work, in those morning hours. Don't check phone, don't check email.
Right.
So it's me and my, my space creating. And then usually around 8:30, I'll start doing some stretches, some yoga stretches, and then I'll play some music and I'll dance around like a nut. Mm-hmm. Or I'll go ride my bike and just get the cardio going and just activate all those endorphins. And then around 9 o'clock, I'll eat breakfast. And then while I'm going to breakfast, I'll listen to something, uplifting, inspirational. Mm-hmm. And then I'll dive back into my day. And then now in the evenings, I'm now committed to meditating in the evenings again, because it's just like that's where I feel like it's even more impactful and meaningful. Mm-hmm. In the evening, to kind of just bring it all down and quiet your mind. Right on.
One of my favorite questions I always ask people is, tell me about a time in your life where you had a particular moment in time where you felt really close to God, the divine spirit, whatever you want to call it. Tell me about a particularly spiritual experience you've had. And I get these great answers from people that are like, oh, I was on this Himalayan mountain trip, or I was walking through the Amazonian jungle, or I was sitting in a drum circle in an ancient Celtic, portal doom. And you just gave me 3 letters. You said DMT. Tell us about your spiritual experience with dimethyltryptamine.
Dimethyltryptamine, DMT. So an interesting thing, for those of you that aren't familiar with this, I'm going to give you a name of a documentary that you must watch just to educate yourself. And the most amazing thing is tonight, we're all going to go to sleep, and in your deep, deep REM sleep, between the hours of 3 and 4 or 4 and 5, depending on what your schedule is, your brain is going to release DMT. Your body makes it naturally, and every night it releases a little DMT and that helps you go into the dream worlds.
Mm.
So if you ever had like a really insane dream, you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh my God, I was in this place, in this world, and it was so vivid and real. That was your brain releasing DMT, which it does naturally and normally. But however, you can ingest DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and it's been done for thousands and thousands of years by different cultures and traditions, especially the Peruvian South Americans. They do ayahuasca ceremonies, which is a special brew. It's the root of one tree and the leaves of another. And I believe it's the leaves that enable your body to ingest DMT. Because if you ingest DMT through the mouth, there's an inhibitor, not an inhibitor. There's an enzyme that immediately destroys the DMT from entering into your bloodstream. So you need something that inhibits that. Mm-hmm. So you can drink DMT. It's a special mix, ayahuasca. You do it in a ceremony. Or you can inhale DMT, which is some brilliant chemist came up with the formula and figured it out. And it becomes a powder and you can inhale it. And so I was in a ceremony here in Boulder, up in the mountains, with a group of friends. And I had watched the documentary. So here's the documentary you guys got to watch. It's on YouTube. It's for free. Write this down. It's called The Spirit Molecule. Mm-hmm. The Spirit Molecule, DMT, dimethyltryptamine. And so we're in a ceremony. I lie down. I inhale the DMT. And you hold your breath for as long as you can. I'm holding it and holding it and holding it because the shaman said that the longer you hold it, the deeper you go. Not knowing what I kind of knew what I was getting into, but I really didn't know what I was getting into.
Right.
And so when I couldn't exhale, there was a point where it's just like I'm like, exhale, Andy, exhale. And like I couldn't, so my body did it for me. And I immediately so I'm holding, and I go, and it's like, I just blasted off into another dimension. And I was in this other dimension of time and space that, like, it's the other side. Like, it's been noted now that they know that when people die, their brain releases a massive amount of DMT.
Wow. And
that helps them make their transition.
Cool.
So yeah, I blasted off into another dimension and was surrounded by a loving presence and an energy. But I still was conscious because most other people did it. I watched them do it. They would pass out and then they'd come back. I stayed conscious. So I'm kind of panicking too. And I'm like, Richard, the name of the shaman's Richard. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? Talk to me. I need a voice. What's going on? Like he gently puts his hand on my chest right here. And he's like, breathe into it. This is your journey. Take the ride. Mm-hmm. Take the ride. So it was like a permission slip. So, because what you don't want to do is hold back and go into fear. You have to breathe into it. You have to go into it. So I blasted off into another dimension. It was amazing. Most incredible spiritual experience I've ever had.
Awesome. So you talked a little bit there about the brain releasing DMT when we transition, which is cool. I actually didn't know that until this moment in time. What do you think happens to our spirit when we leave our bodies in this incarnation, based on your spiritual beliefs and your life history up to this point?
Yeah, I believe the way Abraham Hicks explains it is, we emerge into the non-physical and we expand into our full totality of everything we wanted to be and experience here. We instantly experience it and become it. And I don't know like totally, but I know we're eternal and we continue on, and it's pure bliss. I just heard someone was talking about the death experience, and Esther was tuned into someone who had just died and had a conversation, and he said, I can't, I have no, there's like everything I was just holding on to, and then I knew who I was, and life and me and my identity and my family and my friends. It's like, I have no cares in the world. Like it was all just a dream. It was all just a dream. So that's how I feel. And that's what I really got the last time I did an ayahuasca journey, was like, this is such a dream. This is such a dream. And your thoughts are everything. Your thoughts are creating all of it.
So you said to me in our conversation a couple of weeks ago that basically you kind of go home, right? You kind of go home when you transit.
Right. It's home. Yeah. Yeah. And even from things I've read from Life After Life, that author who wrote that book that really was the first to break ground on that topic, said all the people he interviewed who had near-death experiences and came back all said, it was like I was returning home and everything that I was living on planet Earth was just a dream.
Right.
It was just this dream. And so, and I've heard many other people, there's tons of people on YouTube sharing their ayahuasca ceremonies, and they'll say how, you know, they had very similar experiences with, you know, dying and being reborn, and how this is just all a dream and everything is working beautiful, and the universe is the universe is for you. This is your playground. It's all you. It's all your projection.
Awesome. So your mom, your teacher, your hero, your friend, she went home in late 2015. How have you changed the most since your mom went home?
I guess I feel like I've really, you know, kind of become a man more so, like, wow, my mom's not here. She's here, but she's not here physically. And so, you know, I kind of feel like I've embodied her more now. And there's things I see that she did, examples that she set for me, that I didn't see at the time, that are now serving me incredibly well. You know, like her ability to discipline and manage her time and to get things done. And like when she was writing her books, you know, she worked a 9-to-5 job to put food on the table. And then after working, you know, she'd make herself a little vodka tonic and go into Mike's room, because Mike was now gone. So Mike's room was kind of like her little office. And she would write until 10, 11 o'clock at night. And, you know, I'd be watching TV or having to do homework. But she had such an amazing discipline and focus, and just was about no bullshit. Just get it done, you know? And you know, I was a jerk. You know, I didn't even do the dishes. Like, what a jerk face I was. Like, because it was just too much of a hassle. So she just, I'll do it. You know, you go do your homework. And it was like, oh my God, like, Mom, I'm sorry I didn't do the dishes.
So I know you're open to the idea that we can communicate and get messages from the other side, because we talk about Frank, we talk about Abraham. Do you get messages from your mom still?
Yeah, when I've done mushrooms, like, I'll just feel this loving presence with my mom. And like, mushrooms are so beautiful. And like mushrooms, DMT, MDMA, all these substances are, I really believe, we're on the forefront now of really understanding them, and they are going to become the future medicine. And now there's already clinical studies being done, underground studies that are being funded, where they take people who are suffering from PTSD and who are suffering from depression and all kinds of disorders, and they're giving them, under proper care and dosage amounts, and these people are having radical recoveries and getting on with their lives. And so when I've done some mushrooms here and there, you know, it's always in a very peaceful, beautiful setting, the right music, the right setting, you know, and I just feel this bliss and love, and I'll think of my mom and I'm like, oh, I just feel this love, and I'm like, I'm here, I feel you, I see you, yes, you know, and not any specific clear, but just the presence, and it's beautiful. And like, I'll recall a memory on mushrooms, and it'll just be like, wow, like that happened, like that was so beautiful, like Solapalooza or my workshops, or like, you know, just moments with friends, conversations. It's like, it's like I stand back and I see how it was just all the thought creation and how beautiful and precious it is. So yeah, I've had those kind of encounters with my mom, and every once in a while she'll just be like there. I'm like, oh, hey, wow, I feel you. Okay.
Right on.
Thanks.
Right on. Thanks for sharing that. That's really nice stuff, Andy. So if we looked around in your office there and we could see your vision board, what would we see on your vision board going forward now? What are some of your current dreams and visions for the next, chapter of Andy Dooley?
So my current dreams and visions is to keep doing what I'm doing. And it was so good that I did like Seattle and Portland to get, because it's been a few months since I've done a workshop, and just to get back in there and feel it and see and feel the information coming through me and see it landing on others and being like, God, this is so amazing that I get to do this. And so I see it, I of course I want to have it bigger and reach more people. I'm developing in the process of developing an app, meditation visualization app, nice. Doing more speaking engagements. I'm doing music now, learning to play guitar, beatbox, and looping. So I just want to keep creating and not define it too much that it has to be this, or I have to, I kind of jokingly and seriously say to like my music teacher and some friends, I'm going to sell out Red Rocks, which is this amazing venue here for
right.
concerts. And, and whether I do or not, like I visualized it and I feel it and like I get it. Like that's all it ever has to be. But I mean, to actually have it manifest where like I do sell out Red Rocks, I mean, wow, that would be awesome. But I'm not attached to it. I'd love to be in a movie or do more videos. Just, all of it in the, reaching people and putting this message out there in a way that the right people who are ready to hear it from me will show up.
So when you close out a session, if you will, and I've been a part of it a number of times, I'm very grateful. You do this really awesome thing where you end with like, I am the creator. You told me in one of our conversations about a month ago that you said to your girlfriend, Michelle, if you didn't have to eat or sleep, you just create shit all the time. So you are the creator. You talked to me also about like when we're just a physical body and source energy is running through us, it doesn't get any better than that. Tell us about what you would give us, that last piece of advice you'd share with us about being a creator in our own life.
Yeah. Knowing that your thoughts and your focus and your thoughts. I mean, it's all there. That's where it starts. And that's why meditation and visualization and, all these tools are great to help you get out of the thinking and focus patterns that are keeping you stuck. And so to be the creator in your life, really become more conscious of the thoughts you're thinking, your habits and your focus, and really think those new thoughts. Think thoughts that feel good, that bring you into alignment, that allow you to serve others. Because you really, when you do these psychedelic substances, you really do have this unbelievable euphoric feeling, just off the charts, so much love. And you realize it's not about me, it's about we and serving others and helping others. And so create, I mean, so if you're not much of a creator, you don't think you're much of a creator, like find some outlet, some expression where you can create something, even if it's doodles, writing words, poetry, now everybody's got a phone that has an amazing camera. Just take pictures, become a photographer, put a quote on those pictures, like create something. Because you do. I mean, Abraham Hicks say there's nothing better than the energy that creates worlds flowing through you, and to be in a physical body and having that energy come through you. And so create in the focus and the service of your fellow man, and feel that energy. I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, there are some nights where, I'm going to 11 or 12 easily, just because there's just so much energy and I want to create. And I'm like, so yeah, if I didn't have to eat or sleep, I would just create all the time.
Awesome. Sage advice from the very sage-like Andy Dooley. I'm going to unmute everybody. Let's give Andy a round of applause.
Love you, Andy.
We're running a little bit over tonight, which is great, but just shout it out. Give him your praise. How do you love him?
Why? What's that spell? Andy.
So thank you so much, everybody. I'm gonna just go back to mute now because we are gonna wrap it up. I want to respect everybody's time. If you have questions that were unanswered, if you email them to me or just send them to me via Facebook or send them directly, Andy, I promise you will respond to your questions. But I do want to wrap things up and be respectful of everybody's time tonight. Just a couple things about the broadcast. Tonight's broadcast will be available on a replay for anybody who wants it, so you can share it with your friends. Probably in about 2 days, I'll have it up and running on YouTube, and I'll post a link on Andy's page and my page, which you can share with all your friends. Encourage them to watch this. This was one of the most powerful hours I've ever spent online with anybody. If you want to get a hold of Andy, you can reach him at his website, andydooley.com. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at connect@jameshenryherbert.com, connect@jameshenryherbert.com. Couple of additional upcoming events. Mark Offenbacher and I, who's a fellow IPPY, have been doing a Discovering Acceptance workshop. We've done it about 6 times now. The next one's on April 15th. If you want information about that, send me a message. We talk about grief management, acceptance in your life, coming to terms with something you're trying to let go of. Then also, we just did a Love Your Life workshop in Minnesota last weekend. We're going to be bringing it to Chicago in May. Details about that coming forward. We have a monthly men's forum that we host. If you want information about that, email me directly and I'll tell you about the men's forum. And last but not least, I always announce who the next guest on Stories from the Path is going to be when we wrap the show, because then you get to be the first people who know who's next. And I'm really, really excited to let you all know that my next guest is going to be our very own Anela Wetter, who's sitting in the middle of the screen right now. And Anela is a coach and a speaker who focuses on working with women, working through chapters in their life, whether it's relationship struggles or divorce issues or whatever. And she's really grown an amazing platform in the last year. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her story and how she found the relationship of her dreams, who's sitting right down there in the other corner of the screen, my dear, dear brother friend, Craig Wetter. So thank you so much for coming out tonight. Until we meet next month, keep sharing your stories, keep listening to other people's stories, and if you do, we will keep changing the world. Good night, everybody, and thank you. Unmute so everybody can scream.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Andy.